Hey everybody, this is John Krasinski, and no, this is not a dream. I have been named People's Sexiest Man Alive. What is happening? Just immediate blackout. So the brain just turned off, actually. Zero thoughts, other than maybe I'm being punked. And then after that, it was just, it was a full surreality. That's not how I wake up usually thinking, is this the day that I'll be asked to be sexiest man alive? And yet, it was the day. You guys did it. You guys really raised the bar for me. I did tell Emily, and she was very excited. There was a lot of joy involved. But I do think it's gonna make me do more household chores, but I'm willing to take the cons with the pros, to be honest with you. I think after the cover comes out, she'll be like, all right, that means you're gonna really earn it here at home. My brothers will probably wonder how this is possible for years to come. And luckily, we'll go right into Thanksgiving, so we can just jump right in and talk about it right away. Yeah, I guess I was a pretty imaginative kid. I think I was off in my head a lot, whether I was creating some world in the forest or like digging a little, instead of a tree house, I went under the house because I thought, we already have a structure, let me use the structure. So things like that. Yeah, I was always pushing the limits of what was possible in the realm of weird or not weird, and I was just trying new things. I was always living in some different world, whether it was pirates or some crazy adventure, usually Indiana Jones. Anything Steven Spielberg. I basically was friends with E.T. and also, picking up the Idol and things like that at the age of, basically from 4 to 44. I've been doing that. An awkward phase? Am I not still in one? Okay, great. Well, that's good news that I'm out of the awkward phase. Yeah, I had a real awkward phase, and luckily it's online. So you can go check it out right now. There's pictures of me leaning on a tree. With full braces, but that was kind of the move I was going for, so less awkward at the time, but more awkward looking back. How would I describe myself in high school? Cautious, trying to make sure I didn't step in any landmines socially. No, I think I was trying to just be a guy who was having fun. I had friends in a lot of different groups, so if we were all in a John Hughes movie, I was sort of amongst many groups and not stellar in any of the groups. But no, I played sports, I played the trumpet, I was in band. And yeah, it was really just one of those things where I was trying things out. I was finding my way of what I was into. I was into sports, I was into music, I was into art. I remember I had a moment where my oldest brother fully gave me the Almost Famous moment where he handed me Pearl Jam's 10 and he said, "This album will change your life." And up until then, I don't think I'd listened to anything that wasn't on the radio. So lots of explosions happening in my brain and in my soul in high school, yeah. If you look back at my high school yearbook, I think a lot of people wrote things like, thanks for helping me get through my breakup, or you're a great shoulder to cry on, stuff like that. Like I was really there for moral support for the ladies, not so much in a romantic way. College was the most mind-expanding experience of my life. No drugs necessary. It was just more about a whole bunch of kids. I remember I was lucky enough to go to a great school and get a great education, but the education for me really was finding these life markers of people who brought me into the world of art, theater, music. And like I said, I'd never really listened to anything that wasn't on the radio. I'd never seen a movie that wasn't in the Cineplex. And so to be introduced to 70s filmmaking, French New Wave films, things like that, I actually asked a group of 7 friends in my first year in college. I said, can you give me an album and a movie to see every single week? And they did. And so for 4 years, that was the greatest education I could ask for. I was hook, line, and sinker blown away by Dead Poets Society. So as soon as Robin Williams got kids to stand on a desk, I thought, I want to get kids to stand on desks. So I was going to be a teacher until all the way through college. I was just going to be a teacher. And then I actually went to a theater school for my last semester. I was a mid-year at Brown University, so I had to make up a semester. And I went to this theater school called the National Theater Institute, mostly out of laziness, because I thought we'll just transfer credits back, call it a day, and I'm off to teaching. And it was one of the most transformative 14 weeks of my life. It just completely grabbed my heart and my soul, and I jumped right in and moved to New York to be an actor. When did I first realize I was famous? Oh, it was in New York City. The Office, I forget, it must have been season 2. because iPods had come out and I had no idea what an iPod was. And I was, after the pilot, I went back to waiting tables. After season 1, I was gonna go back and wait tables. And I remember a guy came up to me on the New York streets and he held up an iPod and he said, "Look, you're on my iPod." And the screen was this big. And I couldn't see who it was, but it looked a lot like me. And I thought, I don't know if that's fame or if that person's gonna kill me. But either way, that person knows me and that's a stranger. So that was a big moment.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
I am Harvey, a computer. Jim sucks.
I remember on The Office, the computers we had in the office were live. And that was the early days of like MySpace and IMDb chat rooms and stuff. And I remember Jenna was super into it and she'd go, "Guys, last night's episode, they loved it," and blah, blah, blah. And so we'd all jump on. And I remember one of my first forays down that rabbit hole, I was like, "Oh my God, what did they say? Oh dear Lord." And I've never gone back. I've never gone back. Truly, that scared the absolute hell out of me, those chat rooms in the early days. So I can't imagine where it's gone since. A Quiet Place, I had just started prepping for Jack Ryan season 1. And the producers on Jack Ryan season 1 were working with Michael Bay's company, and they had like the beginnings of a script. It was like a spec script, and it was by these incredible guys. They had written a really, really smart idea of these creatures that could kill you if you make a noise. And there was a family on a farm, and they wanted me to play the father. And I said to them, "I'm not gonna do that. I'm not a big horror guy. I'm just too scared to watch horror movies." And I read the script, and it was exactly 6 weeks after Emily had our second daughter. And I remember, my whole world was different, and the way I was processing, the way I was seeing the world was different. And it really hit me that if I had an opportunity to write a love story or write a love letter to my kids, it would be through this incredible idea that these writers had come up with. And so I said, if I can rewrite the script and put my spin on it and direct it, I'll do the movie, which is exactly what every producer wants to hear. Like, "Oh, good, you want to do more stuff with it. Awesome." So they were terrified, and I had to pitch the studio, I think, 54 times before they said yes. And I'm pretty sure someone said, "Sorry, is Jim from The Office going to direct this movie?" And I went, "It's John, but we'll get there. It's fine."
I don't think any of them actually know my real name.
And then they finally let me direct it.
Cut! Awesome!
That process was one of the most thrilling processes I've ever had because I had never worked with Emily. And it's funny, when you're married to someone who's in the business, you realize you go off on these islands and you have your own experiences and you come home and you talk about it, but I don't know her cast, I don't know her crew. And yeah, you might meet them at a crew party or something, but that's not enough to really know the experience. And you also don't know how each other goes about the day. And so it was really exciting, but also terrifying. And so I remember the night before, genuinely, we were heading into bed, and she turned to me and she said, "Are you scared?" And I went, "Terrified." And she went, "Oh, thank God, me too." And I thought that was a really good way to go into it rather than faking it and pretending. And then I think it was day 1 or day 2, she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Do you know how to shoot this movie?" And I went, "I think I do." And she goes, "Okay, great. We never talked about you being able to visually capture a movie before." And I thought, yeah, this is a good time to bring it up on day 2 when we're already here. But it turned out to be incredible. Listen, having her trust and having her talent in that movie is the core reason why the movie's successful. So it was awesome.
This is it. We got him.
You mean Suleiman?
Sir, he's real. I promise you he is real.
The thing that I loved most about playing Jack Ryan is that he's a real guy. I remember as a kid, he was my favorite fictitious character because he was someone that you could actually believe was out there for you. He was out there on the front lines, and I think it gave you great comfort. The funny thing was, for me, I had never gotten in shape for anything before 13 hours. And that was the hardest getting in shape I had ever done because it was a full-blown transformation. It was on every level, from diet to exercise, but also mentally realizing that you could do something like that. And once that happened, I really didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to days of never working out, just because I knew that as I got older, I'd want to do things like pick up my children. So Jack Ryan came really closely on the heels of 13 Hours, and so it was actually really nice and easy to transition and kind of keep it going. The thing for me about the being in shape for Jack Ryan is, like, he's a healthy guy, but he's not like some huge superhero, you know what I mean? And so I wanted that too when I was playing the part, that he didn't seem like some guy that's impossible. There's not a person out there that can pick up, you know, a tank and throw it at other people. Though you should see the movie. It's gonna be great. No, and so that for me, it was about kind of maintaining a guy who was healthy and also probably stayed in shape a lot because his brain was going all the time, and so he needed something to distract him. I loved when they allowed me to row crew in the show, rowing on the actual Potomac. I remember we had a Navy SEAL swimming next to my skull. Skull, is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. And he said, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I went, "Yeah." And then he got into full scuba gear, and I was like, do I know what I'm doing? Because if he's getting into full scuba gear, that definitely freaks me out. And sure enough, I think we got 3.5 seconds of me rowing before I tipped over and fell in the river. So yeah, I think it's just on repeat in the opening of the show. They just keep showing that clip from different angles.
What are you anyway?
An if.
Oh, without a doubt, to have that experience with my kids. This was the first time that I brought them in on my creative process. I'm not sure they even knew what it is I do because they haven't seen Jack Ryan or A Quiet Place or The Office. I really should remedy that at some point, but I think they thought I was an accountant. And so then when I started prepping this movie, it was because of them. I had seen them, they were the most unbelievably inventive, inspirationally imaginative kids. And then when COVID hit, I saw their lights start to dim, and I just thought, that can't happen. So I started talking to them about this idea that I had to bring imaginary friends to life as these coping mechanisms, these people who help us through life, and they loved the idea. And then I just thought, I'm gonna pitch them the whole movie. When I came up with it, I showed them my initial drawings, which were horrendous, and then I showed them the more professional drawings as artists started drawing pictures of the characters. I based a bunch of the ifs on their imaginary friends. So it was just a full experience where they really got to see what I do and really understand what it is that I do. And I gotta say, it's changed everything in the way we watch films now. They love asking questions. They love asking questions about, weirdly, what lens is being used. Is that a stunt person or is that the actor? What of this is vis effects and what's not? And I just love that. There's this newfound curiosity, which I could not be more excited and or proud of. And it's hard necessarily to take credit for anything that you see in there. But I gotta say, if sense of humor is anything I passed on to them, and Emily, of course, but the fact that they are so funny and so uniquely funny to them, not unique, all kids are funny, but the fact that their delivery systems of jokes and storytelling is so much fun. I look forward to their stories more than anybody else's stories because they're just so good. And they have really good beginnings, middles, and ends. And so really I should be taking notes from them is really the lesson here. I remember my brother said, parent a little bit every day so you don't have to parent big any days. And I thought that was a really good bit of advice. And so I think we're trying to lay the groundwork for when the teen years come, we can say, remember that thing where we always talk to each other and you always trust me and you don't throw shoes at me and things like that. So hopefully we're getting to that phase early, but we'll see. If I don't have my kids, I'm happy to take a picture or whatever, but I think when we're with the kids, we usually say is, you know, we're just having family time, but it's nice to meet you. And most of the time, everybody's really good with that. But because we just don't want the kids wondering what's happening, why I'm taking pictures with people all the time. But there was one of my favorite stories, which is I was walking them to school one day, and this guy came up to me and he went, "John, from The Office?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." And he walked away. And then my daughter, Hazel, at the time, I think she was like 7 or 8, and she said, "So you work with that guy?" And I said, "Nope." And she said, "Why are you lying to me? He said he knows you from The Office." And I thought, wow, what an unbelievable head trip that is. And how do I explain that to her? And she hadn't seen the show. And again, I was an accountant, so at the time. And so in her eyes. And yeah, it was just, it's a pretty wild thing for them to process. And I think they're doing a good job with it now.
How'd you know Emily was the one?
The second I met her. I don't know what happened, but I remember someone introduced us, and it was across a room at a restaurant, and I walked over to her to shake her hand, and as soon as I shook her hand, I went, "Oh," and I just knew. It's that beautiful thing where when you're married to someone, you're constantly learning, and you're constantly changing, and you're constantly evolving, and I'm so lucky to go through all that with her. Perfect date night for us is we love going out to a dinner, you know, just getting out. the kids will ask, "What? You're going out?" And it's like, yeah, it's the first time in 4 months. Thanks, we have earned a night out. No, when we go out on a date, it's usually dinner and catching up. It's because weirdly, that's the thing that you don't always get a chance to do. You know, we've always tried to, one person's working while the other one's not, and you try the best you can. COVID screwed that up a little bit, but no, we're always looking out for that. You never want to work at the same time because, again, it's not only important to be there for the kids, it's important for us because I think it keeps us completely and totally centered. So one of us always wants to be there with the kids. And so, yeah, it's a juggle when you're traveling around the world, but luckily we've got great kids and great friends and family who allow us to, when we travel, you know, bring the whole circus with us. I think the aha moments happen all the time. Most recently for me, I got to take a break after If, and then I was shooting a movie with Guy Ritchie. And I realized I hadn't taken a break in 9 or 10 years, a big break. And I got the summer with the girls. I always spend time with the kids and get to bop in and out, but not one long stretch. And that was an aha moment to actually really, all the things that you're taught when you're a kid are true. All the cliches are true, you know, like stop and smell the roses and things like that.
How would you describe your life now?
Beautiful. It really is. It's a phenomenal thing, certainly to be in this family and be a dad has changed my life entirely.